This is going to be a terrific evening, having James seen this report before. James is definitely the main. James is definitely the main act, and he'll introduce himself in a little bit. I think I do know everybody in the room, but I am Jock Lennox, and the reason I'm here on sustainability was I asked the question when I joined the committee 18 months ago, what are we doing about sustainability? And so that's where we've come from. The reason I'm interested, apart from sort of generally, I do get involved with quite a bit the companies I'm involved with, one of which is the house building in Barratt. So I do spend quite a bit of my day job, if I have such a thing, thinking about sustainability. So getting involved with this has really been I find really interesting and learning a lot. And what I was just going to do is start with a few slides, just explain how we got to this point, what the club has been doing and why. Can you actually read that, David?
No, that's not standard.
Right. Can you read it?
I can read that.
So we did a little test for those with some eyes that could read the slides from the back, but I think these are the smallest words. Anyway, what this basically says is that we went to the main committee the autumn of 22, put forward a proposal and said, look, we think the club should go for a GEO certification, which is the gold standard for sustainability reporting. That entails capturing a sort of point in time data set of 270 data points, which measure a whole range of elements across the course, across the house, how we use energy, how we use chemicals, etc. And we're going to get that audited alongside some improvement ideas. And that basically gets us started with our GEO certification. Part of that is we need an inventory of the nature, the flora and fauna. And that's why James is here, because we invited him to come along to supplement what we knew to tell us about the ecology of the course. The way forward and why I think the way forward, why I think the GEO is so worthwhile, it's really the way I think about it. It's a lens for us to think about how the club gets run, so that through the governance structure that we have, we may change it, of course, but under the governance review. But basically, sustainability will run up through whether it's Greens, House, finance, or whatever. And what the GEO is just a framework to help us think about those things. So anyway, we decided to go with GEO. What is GEO? It's been running since 2008. It is the gold standard, as I said, which is recognised by the RNA and Gold. It is international. You go particularly to countries, Scandinavia, Holland and the like, you'll find it's in the States, and so it is becoming. There are other certifications out there, but GEO is the gold standard. And sort of clubs that are certified, you see the list of people there that we picked up, and that seems to me and to us like a pretty good peer group to be a part of. And James was specifically involved with Robert, Surrey, Ganton, and St Andrews Link. So we might reference those when he gets on to his remarks. Why also is important, I think, from a financial point of view, and I would like to bring up the financial side to, of course. But just look at, these are some numbers we pulled out when we were looking at the cost of the club of energy, water, and fuel, when we were putting forward the case. So we looked at 22, 23, and 5 years earlier, what was the total cost to the club of these resources. And so you can see how that's increased now. 22, 23 might have been a particularly extreme year, but we spent 77,000 on water. And there is a risk though with that. So these bullet points here that comes from a presentation that England Golf have done on water, talking about the threat of removing water or increasing the cost of water to golf. It's potentially a very easy win for people looking for more water to stop golf courses. And also at the moment, we, as with all golfers, we pay domestic rates for our water. And about 90% of our water, I think, comes from the domestic source here. We get about 10% from the borehole that we have. The risk is that we get switched over to the commercial rate, which is 4 times as much. So that 77,000 then becomes 330,000 if we don't do anything. And to put it into context, that's roughly 10% of our subscription income. So this isn't just about, I think, it's a nice thing, a good thing to do. There are actually financial compelling reasons why we should want to get ahead of the curve. So as I said, we decided to go ahead. The bit that we had least knowledge about was the ecology and the nature of the course. So we looked around to find who's the best person in the country to do that for us, and we relied upon James. And the bit of background on why we alighted on James, Nick helped us find him. Having had a chat with James, I think he will really enjoy what he's got to say. He has done a report for the club, which we've got a couple of hard copies here. That hasn't been circulated around because it's got lots of ideas in it, and the trouble is, if we let that go out in general circulation, then those ideas will just sort of will be overwhelmed with enthusiasm. But at the end, if you'd like to have a look through the reports, we're going to have a couple here. You can have a leaf through those so you see a bit more about what James has done on the course. So James, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
My name is James Hutchinson. I'm here to give a brief insight into mud and ecology and compost and wildlife and all those kind of things. But before I do, I have to kind of tell you something about myself, and that's that I get really excited about mud and ecology. Anybody else get excited about that? I know it's just me, though, but I think we've got a couple of guys on our side. I don't like doing this bit of the presentation. It'll take me about a minute, 2 minutes to talk about myself. I really don't like it. I'm getting jittery now. Look, I'm starting to itch and all these kind of things. But I feel it's important that you know who's your presenter tonight, who's giving you this advice on your golf course, who you paid to give advice on your golf course. So I'll keep it as brief as possible. Like I say, it'll take me a minute or so. I started my working life in 1988 as a greenkeeper, a place called Fairhaven Golf Course, just next door to Royal Lytham, Lytham St Anne's. I was there for about 15 years, maybe a little longer, but I had an issue, and that was I was more interested in the trees and what lived in the trees and the fungus that lived beneath the trees and how that interacted with the grasses and that everything worked together. And I wanted to know how it worked together. So I was kind of losing interest in the greenkeeping part. Greenkeeper at heart still, but I was more interested in the ecology of the wildlife and what lives on the golf course. So I thought to myself, how am I going to get to this point here? What am I going to have to do to get to be an ecologist, an advisor on golf courses? So I got myself a foundation degree, took 3 years in agronomy. That's basically the grassland part of the golf course, how to manage it. And then another 3 years an honors degree in ecology. So I married the two together, and basically, let's be honest, they are the same thing. Do we know what ecology is? I'll talk a little bit more about ecology in a second. We know what agronomy is. It's the managing of the grasses on the golf course and so on. So yeah, I got to about 15, 16, 17, 18 years in the golf side of it, the greenkeeping side of it. And I set up a consultancy called the Bespoke Eco Consultancy, just about the ecology of golf courses. And I'm quite fit to suggest that within the space of a month, I had 6 clients, evening golf course up to North Aberdeen, places like this. And I'm thinking, I haven't got the time to do this. I just haven't got the time to do this. So I might just go full time. And I got a call one afternoon from a chap called Gordon Boyer. He was Links Director of St Andrews Links. He said, James, it's Mr. Boyer here, Links Director. Would you mind coming to have a look at our golf courses? And I said, is this Terry, my mate Terry? And I put the phone down. Come right again, James, link director, Mr. Gordon Moyer. I can send you my credentials. Would like to come and have a look at our 7 golf courses. So I thought, go behind me. Okay, so we had a brief chat. And cut a long story short, I went up, have a look, and they offered me the contract to manage the 7 golf courses. Imagine that, managing 7 golf courses. The ecology, this is not the agronomy. So I had a 3-year contract. My role there was to manage the, how do I say, the expectations of the golfers where the wildlife concerned, and all these kind of things. The reports on the old course, the new Jubilee, all those. And part of my role was to educate Nick, the 90 greenkeepers they have on site. Imagine an access to 90 greenkeepers, what your golf course look like. I go Gusto and these kind of things. So I did that for a number of years, and long story short, I missed wife and family. They were still back in Blackpool. I'm from Blackpool, unfortunately, the way you all say it. So yeah, I moved back to Blackpool, and I worked for a place called Bigger, British and International Golf Greenkeepers Association, about 7 years, and I'm now freelance. So freelance on behalf of Bigger. So that's me. That's what I do. And I've also let me get this right. Here we go. This one here. I don't know why I put that last. A gold RNA scholar badge. So I won a scholarship to study ecology and wildlife and golf courses, and I did okay. So they gave me a gold scholarship badge, and I think to date there's only 7 in the world. So there we go. Yeah. So yeah, this is what I do. I work closely with the GEO, the Golf Environment Organisation. I used to be on the steering group of the GEO. I've not been on it for a few years. I think they booted me off. They didn't tell me. They just don't like me anymore. Only kidding, of course. I also work closely with England Golf, the RNA, RSPB, all these kind of people. Also recorded for the Woodland Trust Ancient Tree Inventory. So if I find an ancient tree on a golf course, I measure it, I get the data of the age, all these kind of things, and I upload it to their website. Ancient Tree Inventory. If you get 5 minutes, just have a look at that. I think you've got 2 or 3 ancient trees on site. 2, you've got 2.
To the right of the 16, if anyone wants to go in there and have a look.
They are. I might have further information than yeah, I do it on social media and all those kind of things. I write for magazines and so on. So that's me. That's the boring bit out of the way. I also think it's probably best to know a little bit more about the pedigree of who I've worked with in the past. Yeah, Ganton panel, very similar golf courses. There used to be Heathland that decided to plant trees on it in the 70s, planted a tree in 73, planted some more in 74, and they lost the heat. They lost the beautiful wildlife was there. The golf course was in decline. Because wait till you hear this, and we'll build on it a little bit more. Grass is a full sun loving plant. So bear that in mind, okay, when we come to woodland management of your site. Ecology plans, Royal Household, St Andrews. Are you familiar with the Royal Household golf course?
And
Yes. So it's directly behind Windsor Castle. Beautiful little golf course. It's totally holistic. We don't use chemistry and all these kind of things. But a member of the royal family, dare we say, contacted various people at the RNA, and they contacted us, said, one of your guys knows a bit about ecology. Will you come up to a wildlife plan for the Royal Household golf course? And I thought, cool, I'm really taking a big time here. So I got called from somebody, I think it was from the MI6, because I'm not entirely sure. I said, hello, James, my name's blah, blah, blah. Just going to do a few background checks, because you might be working near to the Lake Queen's offices. The golf course is just below. I'm thinking, oh, okay, we're just going to do background checks, internet history, and all these kind of things. I'm like, right, okay. He said, well, put it this way, Mr. Hutchinson, do you not think we've already checked? So, yeah, I wrote that report as I was spotted around Windsor grounds, 2 armed guards all the way around. So I've never done an eco report with 2 armed guards. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah, woodland management plans, Doncaster, Belvoir Park, Beaver Park, it's actually pronounced, Northern Ireland, Beaver Park, another beautiful site. And reed-bed filtration systems, mucket, jocks from this area, aren't you know? So yeah, reed-bed filtration systems, that's just a holistic way of managing your water before it leaves the site or before you contain it in a reservoir and those kind of things. Yeah, and recycling of organic matter. I actually, wait till you hear this. This is how sad I am. I wrote my dissertation on compost. Who writes the dissertation on compost? You guys are here. So, yeah, it's just my background. What's ecology before we get onto the juicy stuff? You all know what ecology is. You're just being quiet, aren't you? In its rawest term or form, ecology is the study of two or more organisms and the effect they have on themselves or their surrounding environment. That's all it is, ecology. So we can look at geography ecology, how the planes are moving, all these kind of things. We can look at population ecology. That's the effect you guys are having on yourselves and the surrounding environment. So if somebody's come in with COVID, we might all go out with COVID. That's ecology. For today, we're just going to look at the ecology of Royal Wimbledon Golf Course. You've got quite a bit of ecology, by the way. Here's an example of ecology. It isn't your golf course, but I'm just building up before we get to Royal Wimbledon. What's this plant here? Do you know what this one is? Yes, thank you. We said it at the same time. Do you know what type of Roni? Your power.
Himalayan.
Himalayan hybrid. Highly invasive. It's a ponticum. Rhododendron ponticum. Lots of different ponticums, azaleas in the UK. It's not native to the UK. Nick and I have an issue. Okay, we have many issues, of course we do, but it's called the Augusta syndrome. And it's a real term with greenkeepers. Augusta syndrome. Why is now golf course like Augusta? Started mid-April, whatever it is, and the frost is still on the ground, all these kind of things. So the onset of colour TV, so I'm led to believe, late 60s, 70s. Why is now golf course full of blooms, all these kind of things? I know we'll plant azaleas on. Beautiful Heathland golf course. We've got beautiful links golf course, 12 pound, all this kind of thing. We'll plant some rhododendrons on. That's brilliant. Beautiful flowers, all this kind of thing. So this is the effect, so I'm told, of the Augusta syndrome. However, not the end of the world, bit of colour on your golf course. However, ponticum is an environmental disaster. There you go, 2 words, environmental disaster. The reason is the new leaves of a ponticum contains a fennel, a free fennel. You know, plants can fix things or free them and all these kind of things. When it rains, the leaf opens up, the stomata of the leaf, I won't go too deep. Raindrops grabs its fennel into the ground and neutralizes the soil to the point where almost another one of these, thank you, sir, fungus is gone. The soil biota, the biology, it's all gone. This killed it off. Another ponticum can live there. So in terms of survival, all these kind of things, it's a fantastic plant. But in terms of ecology, it's certainly on the site like, okay, Royal Wimbledon, Richmond have quite a few, I believe, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they're all gone now, which is fantastic. But it's still feeling. So I'm just building a picture of ecology and so on. You haven't read the report yet, that's fine. The report findings are, I found a few things. One of the things I will say, the amount of work that you've done is considerable, significant. Has the wildlife been affected? I don't think it has. Correct me if I'm wrong, we'll have a Q&A later on. You guys are working through the golf course, through the actual playability parts of the golf course. You're not going through the woodlands, stripping, clear felling the woodlands. You are woodland management, we'll do that in a bit, but you're not clear felling the place. The areas you're working on are fine turf. There's not that much wildlife on the fine turf. It's all on the outskirts, in the long roughs, the heathland, the woodlands, and so on. So, in terms of wildlife disruption, I don't think there's much at all. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Happy to have a conversation about it a little later on, but just bear that in mind. I don't think you've damaged wildlife too much. A little bit of damage here and there, but not too much. It's not going to clear off. How am I doing for time? Because I can't talk. We're doing fine.
Keep going.
Right, good. Interesting facts. I put 5 interesting facts of what I found about your golf course, Royal Wimbledon Golf Course. Was it once a true heathland? I believe 9 holes were probably once a true heathland. 9 holes probably can't be heathland. They're on the old farmland, reclaimed farmland, something like this. So, was it a true heathland? I'm not entirely sure, but we can get the heath that potentially was lost in the last 20, 30, 50 years, or whatever it was, through lack of woodland management, blade kind of things, back to its former glory. Then you get beautiful wildlife like these guys here showing up. The There are ways to manage the heath, and I've had some reports, so we can have a look at that a little later on if you wish. Your ash trees, I'm quite happy to suggest most, if not all, have ash dieback. You're familiar with the Kalara dieback that's swept the UK? What a shame. I've been to, let's get this right, 480 golf courses throughout the UK and further afield. In fact, to say 90% have ash dieback. So I think the Woodland Trust was suggesting it was going to be 80% lost in the UK. No, I think it'd be something like 95% lost. However, Cold Ashby Golf Course, I visited them a few years ago. They've got monstrous ash, 300 years old. It's not affecting those guys. It's as if the old guys are like, oh, we've seen this before. We've just got dormant for fuse until it passes by. We've got some elms, really big old elms. The Dutch elms didn't affect, it seems to affect those guys. It tends to be the young ones it affects. So, you know, I don't think we'll lose them all, but it's a shame. You've got ash dieback on site. How would you manage them? Ideally, you would just leave them standing. You've got nuthatches on site, tree creepers, woodpeckers, all these kind of things. They will use it as a nest site. Beetles will eat the decaying timber. They're called saprophytes, saprozylic insects. They rely on decaying timber at some point in their life. So if we're getting rid of decaying timber from the site, we're getting rid of a lot of wildlife. If there is a health and safety issue, if it's looming over a tier of green, then it's got to go. It's quite simple. But stack it as eco piles nearby. By eco piles, I mean just logs and eat logs. But be sure to put some vertically as well, because the female stag beetle, she only lays her eggs in decaying upright timber. So you've probably got female stag beetles on site. If you'd have laid all this way, horizontally, horizontally, you probably won't get the female stag beetles. So bear that in mind, Nick. You've got poisonous wildflowers. Don't eat them. So you've got members of the nightshade family out there. I've got them in bloom and with the berries on. Members of the nightshade family. Deadly nightshade. It's actually called a bittersweet, the one you've got, but it's still a member of the nightshade family. Still poisonous. Every part of the plant, the roots, the berry, flower, still poisonous. So don't eat those. You've got trees. This is where I get really excited. 500,000 year-old trees. So that's potentially 500-year-old trees you have on site. Potentially difficult to age because the centre section has gone. And I'll get to that in a minute. But we can't go into to age a tree without going into the centre section, and I think I'll come to that in a minute. You've got wood sage that grows freely. And wood sage is that's it. Wood sage tastes horrible. It is sage. It's not like that beautiful Italian sage that you can buy and all those kind of things that you put in your cooking. You can eat it, but it just doesn't taste it. It tastes of soil. So there we go. Now the reason I put that there is because here's a better example. It's finished flowering there. You see the brown bits? Yeah, full of tiny flowers. Tiny flowers. It's got literally thousands of flowers on each individual plant. Now this is a source of pollen for your butterflies, for your hoverflies, for your bees, and all these kind of things. Hundreds and thousands of flowers on this wood sage. So encourage the wood sage. Also, it only tends to live in really old, unmanaged land. Unmanaged is the incorrect term to use. Let's say rewilding land. Takes years and years to grow, to attach itself to a tree, to attach itself to the fungus that lives there, and so on. So if you've got wood sage on site, you're doing something fantastic. Well, there's just a few interesting facts. But are you doing well? No, is the wildlife doing well? Well, I found wildlife, but I was only here for a couple of days. And ideally, you'd spend a good few weeks just observing the wildlife. So, not entirely sure, but I did find a good amount of wildlife, and I think I put that in the report. Reduction of juvenile trees. Now, I love ancient trees. It's kind of my thing. So, if I'm advising reduction of juvenile trees from your site, how are they going to reach veteran status and ancient status? Could remove them. The reason I advise removing juvenile trees, not all of them, juvenile trees from your site goes back to the start. Grass is a full sun-loving plant. You need sunlight, you need air to this grass. Nick and I and a few other people, well, the whole greenkeeping industry, we don't have access to the chemistry we used to have. It's not particularly a bad thing. So we need to manage our golf courses holistically. By holistically, more sun, more sunlight, more airflow to the greens and tees and so on. Also, you have 5 or 6 different canopy heights. in a woodland, a natural woodland, you've got ground canopy, low canopy, mid upper and roof and all those kind of things. If they get too congested, if you don't manage these woodlands, right, let me go back to the start. If you leave a woodland to do its own thing, it'll take 200-300 years to sort itself out, all those different canopy heights. We don't have that time. A lot of the trees you have on site are probably 20, 30, 40 years old, so they need managing. If we don't manage them, they're all going to reach the sunlight. They'll all die at the same age. They'll all fall over and you'll have a health and safety issue. So you need to manage the woodlands, the juvenile trees on site. And that's the reason I've suggested removing a good amount of trees from the site. If you remember, what I'm telling you about now is trees and ecology. I love these things. I've been called a dendrophile. I've been called all sorts of things. A dendrophile is somebody who loves trees. I love trees. So for me to come to a golf course and advise the removal and the death of trees, it isn't easy. I do it for the benefit of the golf course. So we need to bear that in mind as well. So, yeah, where are we now? You're also future-proofing the golf course, irrigation system, all that kind of thing. Fantastic. Protecting the old woodlands, you've got some beautiful trees on site. You're not going through the old woodlands and protecting woodlands, all those kind of things. That's another plus point. There are negative points. But I'm just building on the plus points for now. Encouraging the heath. You're removing tiny little trees from the heath. You're managing the gorse from the heath. Again, great work. I've just advised on how to do it a little differently, a little bit more holistic. There's education needed. There we are. Potential geo certification and entry into the Environment Awards. So the Environment Awards is, there's 2,500 golf courses in the UK. It's probably about 400 enter the Environment Awards each year. And the winner gets a trophy and some money to put toward a holistic plan. And I think in the next 2 years, you guys should start entering the Environment Awards for the management of the heath, for the reservoir, various other things. So you're nearly there. So I think you should start thinking about entering the Environment Awards. Right. How are we going to improve the biodiversity from removing trees? How do I put this? You've got enough trees. That's it. You don't have enough open grasslands, open heath. I don't think you do. You've got beautiful wildflowers in the grasslands if you manage them. If you just leave them to wildlife, you'll get natural succession to nature. You'll get natural succession coming through. You'll get birch, Scots pines, all these kind of things. You'll lose your beautiful rough. I'm a golfer as well. That's a terrible swing. I like to play out in fine fescues, fine grasses, and so on. But you can't play out in the trees, can you? So they need managing. So how are we going to improve the biodiversity from removing trees? We manage the grasslands. We improve the heath. We improve the we continue with the bunker edge planning. Certain butterflies only use scalloped edges of grasslands to move across the site. They don't go over the top. They can only fly at this side. So they need to go through a scalloped edge. And that's a beautiful example of scalloped edge. You can go over the top there, through there, around there, all that kind of thing. The purple hair streak that you've got there, that lives in the top of the oak canopy. And she lives 20, 30 meters up. But a lot of meadow ground, for instance, speckled wood, they don't go too high off the ground. You might see this side a little bit higher. Fragile flyers. So they need the scalloped edges to work through the wind and so on. Plus they eat grasses, they live off grasses, all those kind of things. Once you manage the fine grasslands and the scalloped edges, you get discrete fine wildflowers coming through. You can still play out of pollinators again. So that's one way of improving diversity. Flora improvement. So we've just built on that one. Fauna improvement. How are we going to introduce more pollinators to the site? That links into the first one. If we're improving the grasslands, the fragile wildflowers will start coming through. We're improving the heath. We'll get more wildlife working its way through. Don't you want to see you trying to not do that?
No.
Yeah. Brambles, believe it or not, encourage the brambles, but further offline. Okay, don't remove all the brambles. Brambles are fantastic for the environment, for the ecology of the site. You've got early flowers. You've got else. You've got berries in the autumn. They're a site for small nesting birds, ground nesting birds, wrens, royals, all these kind of things. So retain as much bramble as on site. But again, it's a golf course. Getting to nature reserve. We're just trying to marry the two in together so golf and nature can work in harmony together. Like I say, I'm a golfer. I like to play out the fine roughs, but I also like to see wildflowers and the old trees and all these kind of things. This is an interesting picture. The gorse that you have there is approaching the end of its life. Gorse lives about 30 years, something along those lines. It's becoming leggy, it's becoming brown, you've got wind damage there. It's not that great a habitat. So you've got areas on site that, let's say, pockets of gorse the size of the footprint of this room, needs managing. Certainly not suggesting compressing it down to 150 million, which was what you should do. Let's cut it into 3 different areas. Let's manage it on a 3-year rotational basis. So you've now got 3 different habitats rather than one local habitat. That's not very healthy at all. And this is what's in the report, different ways of managing your site. Rather than coming clear felling close or putting it really low, let's manage it on a rotational basis. Yeah, so there we go. You've also got what's called Nepticula aurelia. So she's beauty. She's a moth, leaf miner moth. She lays her eggs. It's all female to that, didn't we? Look at this. She lays her eggs on the underside of the bramble leaf. The eggs hatch, turns into a larvae. The larvae eats its way through the middle part of a bramble leaf. Then you get a little track going through, and the pupa is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It gets to a point where I can't keep this anymore, I'm too fat to get it. So it breaks out, turns into a moth, and the cycle ends up again. So if we remove all the bramble from our side, we're getting rid of the leaf miner moth, Nepticula aurelia. I have that one there. I don't know how to spell it. Yeah, so how long have we got, John?
A few minutes.
A few minutes. Oh, I've got about 4 slides left. Right. As I mentioned, you have that ash dieback. You've also got a lot of trees that are approaching, a few trees that are approaching their end of the line. If there's a health and safety issue that they've got to go stuck them in eco files. Where's it going with this one? I think I've already done this slide, so I'll just touch on it for a second. Trees don't live forever, when they die, you've got what's called a saprozytic insect that works its way through the tree, turns it into compost. Tree will fall over, something will eat it, poop it out, turn it into compost, and you'll eat it again. So you need to retain the old trees on site. Don't cut them down, the dead trees, don't cut them down unless there's a health and safety issue, just leave them where they are, all those kind of things. I've actually done that slide earlier on, so don't forget that one. Right, question. Audience interaction time. Get to take a guess and which tree is the oldest and how old do you think it is? These are all trees I found on golf courses. We'll start with this one. That's Coventry Golf Course, I think, Sweet Chestnut. Huge big girth. 8 metre girth. So an 8 metre girth is probably for need to jock around. So big old hill. What else have we got? An old oak Hexham Golf Course. This is Stoneleigh. That's at Willisley Park. So which do you think is the oldest and which? How old do you think it is? Willisley.
800 years.
800 years. Top left. How old do you think? 200.
400.
How old that? 800 years old. 400 years old. Maybe. Any others? Well, we're going the youngest. Sorry. So this, and bearing in mind, this is the Woodland Trust. Aging the trees. I collected the data and so on. Sent it to the Woodland Trust. They verified it, put it on their ancient tree inventory. So they are verified as being 50 years either side of the age we're suggested they are. That's a Sweet Chestnut. She's about 550 years old. She's the youngest. We've got Hexham, you said Hexham, Jeff. Hexham Golf Course, about 850 years old. Yeah, it's called the Leper Oak. So they've got record. There's a monastery nearby. There used to be a monastery nearby. This is how we know it's a certain age. And they used to have lepers. And it's called the leper oak because the people who managed the monastery used to come out and drink food and then run off. And the lepers came. And this was like 500-600 years ago when the tree was 3 meters in girth. So we've got records of this being around about 850 years old. It all ties up. 850. Stoneleigh, 900-year-old oak, one of the oldest in the UK. They got to about 1,000. This is a Sweet Chestnut, Willisley Park. You're right, sir. Before I tell you the age, right, let me get started. I used to write for a magazine, and I was on about old tree and all this kind of thing. Anybody got an old tree on the golf course? And I got a call from Willisley. We've got one. It's 11.5 meters in girth. So, in fact, I said, big old girl. And I said, oh, how do you really? Oh, that's great. Okay, thank you very much. Send me a picture. I'm thinking, nobody's got 11.5 meter girth. Thank you for your time, all this kind of thing. So they sent a picture, this chap stood next to it, he's their greenkeeper, he's about 6 foot tall, so there's the sign of the Derby. Cool, blind, look at this. So straight down, took me tape measure, and yeah, it was a little over 11.5 meters. From Bull and Trusted, they suggested, look, this could be over 1,000 years old, this tree. Turns out it's about 1,100 years old. 1,100 years old. They go up to 2,500 years in their native Spain, not native to the UK, these fellows. The oaks are, sweet chestnuts are. So,
Did you say the rock and mine was?
sweet chestnuts,
That's-
Willesby Park, yeah. So about 1,100 years old. So there are 4 ways, and so, yeah, 4 ways to age a tree. I'll talk you through them very quickly because I'm running out of time. The first is to.
Why didn't you comment on the 69-year-old tree? It might not be 69.
Right, as you can see. Right, so I was writing your report, and as I was approaching said tree, I thought, oh, blimey, she's beauty. I would say 200 years old, maybe more. And I got there, and there's a plaque, probably even more than 200 years old. And there's a plaque saying it's 69 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, cool, but now I'm not too sure about that. Look at the spread on it. You have a long time to grow. Okay, I'm going to put cards on the table now. I'm not 100% sure whether it is a native oak. We'll have to see the leaves, we'll have to see the flowers. There's many different variables we need to take into account before we can identify it. So bearing in mind, a native oak grows 1 centimetre in girth a year, and this is 3.5. So if we go on that bit of data, it's 350 years old. Now there's lots of things we need to take into account. Is it growing in sand? It's going to grow slower. Is it growing in old farmland? Which is it? No. It'll grow fast. Is there available water? What's the pH? Loads of different variables. And I'm thinking, what a beautiful tree. And I've seen the plaque. I'm thinking, I'm going to question that. I'm not entirely sure that's a 69-year-old tree. 69-year-old trees, girth on that. This one's like that. Beautiful spread, all that kind of thing. Could be a turkey oak. Turkey oaks grow fast. They grow 2 centimetres a year. Even so, that's still 160, 170 years old. I'm really questioning it. Again, I'm happy to be corrected. If somebody might be 300 years old.
But yeah, we're all 300 years old.
So I'm not sure. I'm not convinced. So there's 4 ways to age a tree. One of them Nick and I have done. First is to okay, the first is to bore into the center of the tree, just centimeter, okay? Bore into the center. Take our sample, count the rings, okay? And it's entirely accurate to the year it was born, or a couple of years after. Trees don't give a big ring the first couple of years. So it's entirely accurate. But you've now got a hole for a wood-boring beetle or a pathogen that turns into disease and all these kind of things. And you have bad wood-boring beetles on site. You have the procession room off, is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, don't start me on that one. So you've now got a hole. It's not good for the tree. You've just bored into the middle of the tree. The second is bore again into the center of the tree. Take some samples of the heart of the tree for carbon-14 dating. This isn't entirely accurate on living tissue. I believe it's about 30, 40 years either side of the tree to age. Nevertheless, it's an option. I don't do either of those. The third way is to measure, to meter up all the girth of the tree. Trees have girths until they get really old, 500, 600 years, and they just go. They have girths, and yours has a girth. So we've measured around the girth, and it's 3.5 meters, 350 centimeters. So that's what we've come to now. I suggest that tree is quite an old tree. It's way over 150, 200 years old. I could be wrong, but I'm happy to be corrected. If you get a dendrochronologist who does this for a living and come down and take a sample, I'm happy to be corrected. But I don't know. I think the plaque's gone. I think the tree's gone, and then move the plaque over here. So the fourth way is cut the tree down and count the rings.
Yeah.
Right, last slide, I think. Penultimate slide. Penultimate but 2 slides. One thing I've noticed about Royal Wimbledon Golf Course is the amount of fungi you have, fungus. This, strictly speaking, isn't a fungus. Just bear with me a second, you probably know this, but that's just the fruiting body of the fungus. The fungus itself is strands of little tiny white, it's called mycelium. It just works its way eating through the poop and the compost and all these kind of things, and it turns it into more compost. And the grasses and the trees take it up. Now, somebody really important once said, if we lose the weed, then we're all going to be dead in 10 years. It was Einstein. I'm certainly not saying, no, you're wrong. What I'm saying is, if we lose the bees, we can self-pollinate plants. Plants can self-pollinate. We can cross-pollinate. We can do all sorts of things. So I don't think we'll die. Perhaps we would have done 100 years ago, then said gentlemen. I'm not questioning it, don't get me wrong. Said the statement. What I am saying is, if we lose the fungus, we're in a heck of a lot of trouble, because they eat decaying matter. So when the leaf falls or when something dies, they eat it, poop it out, turn it into compost, something else eats it. Nature's bin men. We lose the fungus, we're in a lot of trouble, because it'll just build up and build up and build up. It's not going to be very nice to build. So that's the fruiting body. Right, let me get this right. Again, happy to correct it. I heard a story from a mycologist who deals in these kind of things. This is a poisonous one, so don't eat it. It's called the fly agaric. It taps into the roots of beech trees and birch trees and all those kind of things. And I heard a story about these. The chap who wrote Alice in Wonderland, just bear with me a second. Lewis Carroll. Again, just, I can't believe I'm saying this. He used to take these. They made him very ill, okay? Seriously ill. But they're hallucinogenic. So he'd go by his tie wrap and start talking about cats in trees and people taking things and going, all those kind of things. Happy to be corrected, but yeah, there we go. But don't eat anything you find in the of course. Right, again, how they operate is these guys can't photosynthesize for themselves. There's no green pigment in them. Called chlorophyll, not chloroform like I once said in every life, so chlorophyll. Trees and grasses do have said pigment. These fellas tap into the roots of trees, take away the simple sugars and starches, and they feed themselves. I don't think that's a parasite. Probably is. But these fellas can break down minerals. The fungus can break down minerals. Trees and grasses can't do that. They give the minerals to the trees and grasses. It's this perfect symbiotic relationship that works perfectly well together. And that's that ecology I was talking about early on. We lose the fungus, we're in a heck of a lot of trouble. So that's fungus, fungi, all that kind of things. Being eaten by slugs. Slugs love them. Deers love them. You see them staggering around. Nice guys. Right, last slide thing. Golf course is bad for the environment. Do you reckon? Yeah, of course they're not. Go on, Margaret. I've been on radio programs arguing with professors of all sorts of things about how good golf courses are for the environment. Here's one. So I do a bit of work over in Ireland. On the way into John Lennon Airport, Liverpool, I thought, oh, look at this, I'll take some pictures. That's Wallasey. I wrote their report many years ago. Not entirely sure where that is, but can you see where's the wildlife? There's on that green belted line. Got a playing field there. Not much wildlife on the playing field, gulls, crows, corvids, all these kind of things. Again, happy to be corrected, but I think you're correct. Industry, we need industry. Of course we need industry. Housing around the edges. We need housing. My point is there any wildlife in the industry? Is there any on the playing field? Not much at all, let's be honest. Where is it? It's all on that golf course there. Problem is that now landlocked. So anything that live there has to fly there. I get an insect or a bird or something like that. You can't get hedgehogs there, they get run over. Won't be any deers there, those kind of things. Well, obviously, there's a similar one. Playing fields at the top, we need playing fields, don't get me wrong. We need the housing, beautiful housing. But all the wildlife is there. There's a bit on the sand dunes that works its way around the Wallasey coast, the Liverpool coast. All the wildlife is there. And here's another example. Last slide, promise. That's your golf course. Well, Wimbledon golf course. You've got another one, Coombe Hill, Coombe Wood golf course. Who else have you got? That's about it. There's a fine example. Where's all the wildlife? On your golf course. And I'm hoping that the report I wrote and the great work Nick and the guys are doing is improving the wildlife or sustaining the wildlife that you have on site and future-proofing the golf courses for future generations to love, future wildlife to love. So that's a great slide, and that's probably me gone over about 5 or 10 minutes. So
That's okay. Thanks,
Thanks, James.
It's questions in a few minutes, but first, Simon, you're just going to give us what do we do now with all of this got in front of us?
It's definitely the short end of the presentation after you, James. There's one of the experts, so but well done for that. It's fantastic. So in the pre-email that was sent out today, you see some links to some apps that the GEO recommended for use out on the golf course. We've now submitted our first set of annual data to GEO. So between the teams, we'll be collecting the 270 data points to submit the certification. So we're just waiting now for verification, and we'll have someone on site to come and assess this. As part of that, we obviously had to track the flora and fauna data. So we reached out to GEO, asked them what they recommend, and there's just 4 apps that they recommend there. On the email that's sent out this afternoon, you have download links for the Google Play Store and the App Store. So you've got Seek, Google Lens, which you can use for anything day to day, Merlin, which is a bird ID app, and Picture This, which is specifically for plant identification. So the reason we put these up on the wall here was if anyone had the chance to download, you can imagine you're out there on the golf course and you see a bird flying by, so you can take a quick snap of this. If I use, let's move to one of the apps here. So if we move to Picture This, we talked, obviously, about the stage here. We'll just take a quick picture. And in seconds, that's going to identify it as wood sage, excuse me. It's going to say this plant is looking healthy, which we discussed earlier, and it's going to give you key facts on it as well. You can also, if you want to know the botanical names, which I'm not going to try and exactly as that seems. I'm not going to try and repeat that. Again, if you want to look at Seek, you can go to, as we said, our butterfly there, purple hair streak. We can literally, by a click of a button, it's just going to ask us to identify, take a picture there, and then it's going to give us information all about what we see out on the golf course there. So you're going to view species, and you can find out all about it, where they are in the local area, and it's geolocated there for other people that are using the app. The one thing you can do on all these apps, and obviously pace of play as a consideration, I'm sure we're thinking about it a little out there, is that actually you can store the photo. So I can take that picture now, upload it onto the app, and then come back in the evening and see, oh, I wonder what that was on the golf course. What was the bird that I saw out there when I was using the Merlin app? So where does that all go? So we've come up with a really simple form that we've used, and we've shared it in the presentation notes today. But over the coming weeks, months, we're going to be sending that out wider to the membership. So if you are out there and do have a keen interest on tracking what's out there and helping us track the GEO data, you can basically go onto this database, and it is done hole by hole. You can just click through, you put your name, the date on there. If you're on hole 1, you can just click through. If you see something on hole 5, feel free to click through to hole 5 and track that. And what that will do is build up a geolocated database for the golf course itself. This is thanks to actually the working group members with the support of Graham. From their walks that they've gone out in the prelude to us submitting the GEO, submitted for the GEO certification, we've actually, and James's report as well, so we got a lot of species from James's report, but you can see from there 53 species of trees, shrubs and plants, 14 species of fungi, 34 species of birds, and 36 species of insects and vertebrate there. So all we can say is that's going to continue to grow as people keep submitting to the database, and GEO are happy with us building that out into a wider geolocated area from there. Thank you, John.
So where do we go from here? We want to get the GEO certification done and completed. The idea is we'll have that by the end of April, so that we then can put our badge up. And what we want to then have is continuing engagement with the members, as Simon was saying, so we get feedback from members on what they think, what else should we be doing from an improvement point of view. All of the ideas that James has in his report, that actually Nick with the Greens Committee will take that and work out how does that fit into the plan going forward. whether that be the course, direct course management, woodland management. And then that, we will then see the results, the fruits of that in the future. And then that will give, by sharing that, then encourage members to give their thoughts on those. And as I've had 2 or 3 ideas unsolicited as we've sort of been working up to this from various members. So we want to encourage that. Launch the recording system as Simon was saying. We think there's a real asset here in terms of the knowledge of the nature and seeing it firsthand. So one of the things we want to do through the connection with the junior section is, can we get some outreach to local schools in Merton to encourage them to come and visit, obviously in a sensible manner, to see the nature in its its real sense, as opposed to just in the classroom. I know Nick is quite keen to be party to that, because perhaps that's a way of encouraging people to come into golf as a career, for example, as well as to be more inclusive from playing golf. So can we encourage people to put themselves forward? And then one other thing we want to do is, once the long-term strategic plan is out of the way and Nick can pause and take breath, is to get a bit of a storyboard out on the course with QR codes to pick up on specific points of interest, so that people can see and we can engage with people. And that'll be building on a lot of content that's in the report that James has given us. So that's where we want to go from here. One thing I didn't say at the outset, for which I hope all got your permission and approval, is we are recording this session so that we can share it more broadly to the membership, when people can tap into it and also learn from it. So that's the formal bit of the presentation, but I think we'll be, James, I'm sure in particular, be happy to take any questions on any areas you'd like to delve into a bit more deeply. Next year too, we've got some greens folk too, and if we stray into house, we've got house covered also. So does anyone have any questions they want to Russell?
Firstly, James, actually thought very interesting. What are the top 3 things you would do to improve that biodiversity in the workforce? What would your top 3 picks be? Immediate improvements.
Definitely heather. So improve the heather as much as you can.
More or less.
Oh, definitely more.
Okay.
Yeah. From a golfing point of view, you're probably thinking less heather.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you a quick story about heather. So former ladies, yeah. So I did work with those a few years back, and I said, how do you get all this heather in here? And they said, we're trying to reduce it, we're trying to get it back. Somebody takes a divot on a fairway, and if that divot isn't replaced within 2 weeks, heather starts to grow. So I'm trying to get heather on the side. That's one thing. The second is definitely reduction of the amount of small trees that you have. Let the big trees have a bit more sunlight, a little bit more grassland on site rather than the small trees. The third would be, now that's a good question. You put me on the spot now. Which were the 5 points I've on there?
We need to get back to that quickly.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, just encourage the wood sage. Literally encourage the wood sage. They've got so many tiny little flowers on this wood sage. And so encourage it. It basically is don't cut it down. Leave areas around the wood sage to grow a little bit more. So I guess those would be the 3 instant things I could do.
Okay.
You mentioned Port Patrick and the reed beds there in connection with the water conservation or something like that.
Yep.
Is that something you could introduce here?
Do you have, it's a question for Nicholas, do you have a washdown facility? Yep. Yeah, probably not then.
What washdown facility?
Washdown facility, so when you take your machines on the golf course, wash them down, this machine collects the grass, makes it safe, puts it back into the water system, recycles it around, and it can use it again to wash machinery with. That's fine. But a holistic reed bed is wash your machines up. You will have 3 or 4 ponds that I've designed with common reeding or soft rush or something along these lines. You have a filtration system. You could block each pond off once the water comes in so that the water stays in the pond for about, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks. The reed's taking the contaminated water. By the time it gets to the fourth or fifth pond, you can actually drink the water that comes out of the reed bed system. Now, don't eat anything you find on the golf course and don't drink the water of a reed bed system. It's a holistic way of managing your water. And it's a cheap way of doing it as well. So the reed bed system is probably around about £7,000. £500 a year to manage. It's as easy as that.
But presumably when we, if we get to the point of reservoir and thinking of the water that's going into that may be a mechanism to clear
Very much
water that's
Yeah.
so the reservoir.
It's a source we hadn't considered necessarily, things we hadn't calculated what we use to clean machinery, but it all has to go somewhere. Currently, it gets recycled within the same system, so you don't get any pollutant or nitrogen leaching into the water courses. However, that can easily go through into the system of water storage units. And we will have to renew that wash down facility at some point to cover you.
Robert.
James, that was a really, really interesting presentation. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You mentioned right at the beginning that you're a recorder for the ancient tree inventory.
Yeah.
And the trees that you saw up in our woodland to the right of the 16th hole as we play it. And you mentioned them over 500 years. Have they been recorded on your ancient
Yes.
tree inventory? So
I didn't record them.
you didn't record them. They were already there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Said about that.
But
Yeah.
funny, but
It's probably Terry Barr, I think.
Yeah.
There's a few of our members are quite involved with ancient trees in and around the local
I
area.
suppose John Nicholson.
Terry Barr took me up there 13 years ago to
Good
see
man.
the tree.
John's a good man, yeah. I think if you do go onto the site and then you click on the individual tree, I think it probably tell you the history of the tree. If somebody's recorded it, been on site, and they'll have added the information. So I believe they're about 450 years old, maybe 500 years old now. Beauties they are.
Great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
James, appreciate your role as promote wildlife. However, are there any times they work with who haven't promoted badgers?
I still hear nobody talks about badges. They're bane of my life, badges. They really are. Anybody that hasn't promoted,
Well, got rid of them, moved them on.
yeah, 2 golf courses I know. I've got them. One was the called line. You're testing me now. When Scottish Open was held about 13, 14 years ago, landslide. Castle Stewart. Castle Stewart. Thank you. They applied for a license to S&H when they built the golf course full of badger sets, and they got that license because potential landslides, potential golfers going through the sets, the amount of money the Scottish Open will bring into the area. So they actually got a license granted to them to remove the badgers offside. Badgers still get on, but they managed to get them off. The second is Easingwold Golf Course, I think, North Yorkshire. Let me think about this one. Wait till you hear this. So they erected a metre-high fence across the side. Metre-high fence, so the badgers couldn't get over, they couldn't get beneath. They got license to get the badgers off site first. However, they didn't put, wait to hear this, they didn't put a fence on the automatic barrier that comes up. So when the badgers were coming in at night, I think there's noticing them, the fence would go up and then Lynn Golf Course, I went to Lynn. They didn't get license. So to remove badgers from a site like this, it's damn near impossible. It really is. You could have a go.
We did
to Natural England.
we did have a go a number of years ago, and we went through the. Sorry, we.
Yes. No, I'm saying straight.
No, absolutely no. That's fine. Because we went through it with the Environment Agency or whoever the governing body was that grants you the license to do it, and we made all the applications. But the interesting thing is, it's not as if you grab a badger and put it in a box and take it to another town. It's you go through a process of gateways so that if you see they're going in and out of the set, then you have to reset the number of days that you can work in that. So we went through the whole process. It took a long time because they had been undermining a green on the golf course. It was the 8th green, and we did all the work and it was all approved, and we were then able to put something in the ground to cover the sets underneath in the distance. But you don't move the badgers anywhere. You just don't let them come back into where they were living. And that worked, but it was a very expensive project. But we
Yeah.
did it a number of years ago successfully on that one home.
Yeah, here's the thing, don't fight wildlife, you'll lose every time. You can perhaps work with it in your favour, i.e. moving the badgers over there. But the what's called transient badgers, if you move them from over there, they'll just move to here and then they move back over there. They're damned annoying. Two things I've found, only two in all the time I've been doing this, that potentially work with badgers. They don't like noise. So a sonar scarer or a loud scarer in the middle of the night. But if you do that, you've got houses around the side, so you can't have a high-pitched whistle going up every 10 minutes. The second thing is big bags of nuts. They like nuts. So go to an area off-site or an area that's on your site. Put lots of nuts in a certain area. Badgers love nuts. They'll find those nuts. They'll eat themselves really fast, and then they'll just go back to the set. So that's an option. You're allowed to feed badgers. You're not allowed to touch them. You're not allowed to do anything with them. So here's another thing. Bath, I can mention names. Why not? Bath Golf Course. They called me in a few years back. Said that you write an inquiry report with working with Natural England Environment Agency. I said, yeah, no problem. Anything I need to know about, which is often saying, okay, so I found badger sets and all these kind of things. I advised the best way forward. They said, thank you very much. Well, by the way, prior to you coming, we were fined £10,000 for streaming around the badger set, just basically streaming around the badger set. So if you've got badger sets on site, just be aware. You do have badger sets on site, I've seen them, and you aren't managing them, I've actually seen them. So just be aware, ladies and gentlemen.
Again, to echo what everybody else has said, fantastic presentation, very inspiring. You know, like everybody else, hopefully we're very positive about the sort of progress that's been made. And you got asked a great question, get this whole thing kicked off. You've shared with us great stories, and that's going to be hopefully cascading to the membership. And you mentioned this app and recording data and asking us to do that. What's the kind of the reason why members might do that, and once it's been captured, what happens to it, and how does that get further the benefit?
Yeah, first thing is best practice. You're doing best practice. You're identifying wildlife that you have on site, and you're letting the greater world know about this. I the school keep reading in. The second thing is if you want to be GEO certified, which I think you should, there's probably only 30 odd clubs in the whole of England that are GEO certified, 5 open venues. Once you are GEO certified, and once you do work with Natural England with all this data, let's go to Natural England and say, look, we've got all this data. By the way, we need those badgers dealing with. We're working with wildlife. Look, we have 78 species of bird life, all those kind of things. We're working with wildlife. So those are the two main things I
think we've got to capture self-interest.
Yeah.
To show that we are maintaining an interest in using the site well. So
Yeah, and I think if I could add that Michael Paskett sent round a report to a number of us that there is a groundswell of people that are really fighting for golf courses to be demised so that they can build housing on it, and arguing that housing is very much required and golf courses are the perfect site for it. By showing what biodiversity there is in a golf course is a very, very strong defence. Now, I think the strongest defence for what we're doing is it is doing the right thing. But secondary is the fact is building a defence to make sure that golf courses can stay and are regarded as a valuable asset to local communities.
any other question, Graham?
Yeah, just a quick one. You're thinking on putting up nesting boxes, plus or minus?
Definite plus, but just be aware of how many I would suggest you've probably got 150 acres, something like this on site. So you could easily accept 100 nest boxes, boom tits, great tits, nut hatches, all these kind of things. But if you put lots of nest boxes up, you're now going to get lots of small birds who are going to start to dominate a certain area. So there's lots of different nest boxes you can use. As I mentioned, nut hatch boxes, we've got a V, kestrel, owl boxes. We've identified a tree on site. It's dying. Let's get an owl box on top of there. But it's important you choose which nest box. And also, just as important, or probably more important, they need to be facing the shade or east. Basically, if you put them in full sun, it becomes an oven. So the chicks dehydrate and they don't make it to maturity. So yeah, nest boxes. Yeah.
It's mentioned bees.
Bees.
the part that they should play. Presumably you encourage. them
Well,
to
I
have
think,
beehives.
yeah, beehives, the jury's out with me on beehives. I mean,
Just a reminder, we have.
Yeah.
again, I'm happy to be corrected, but I've spoken to a few reasonably high people in certain industries about this. They're not native to the UK, correct me if I'm wrong. The honeybee that's used in the honeybird thing, yes, is. So with that in mind, the native honeybee and the native bumblebee, quite a few, I think there's many different species, they are in decline through loss of habitat and all this kind of thing. So I'm thinking if we put lots of beehives on site, they're probably potentially going to take the food source from the native bees that are dwindling. I mean, there's something I've seen like 6,000 or 7,000, isn't there, bees in an individual hive. So at least, there we
I
go.
think the note to take from that is we need to make sure that we have native bees.
Which I think we do, Nick. I think Sergio only uses native bees.
Yeah.
It's really short yet.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So hence the suggestion of managing the rust to get discrete wildflowers and wood sage and all these kind of things on site. I'm heather too.
Can you plant wildflowers?
Again, the jury's out with me on this one. If you plant wildflowers, you'll get a bag. Wildflower seed, campion, daisies, all these kind of things. They're not wild, are they? They're just flowers. So you're just planting flowers in a section. We manage a site for wildflowers. They'll come in. If we thin the rust out, you'll get wildflowers coming in. So again, the jury, probably behind the first tee or down the side of the path, something like that. I think wildflowers are fine. Natural wildflowers, like I say, the jury's out of it.
Time for about one or two more questions, so please go press them to the front.
John, what's the major benefits we're going to get from the GEO accreditation?
Well, it's recognition, but I think for me, I think the way we should think about it is, let's say it's a way of us as framework for us thinking about how we're taking responsibility for the use of resources, of course, in the broadest sense, whether that be energy, etc., and also what the biodiversity and the natural habitat of the course is. So that's, the badges is all very nice, but I think it's what we do with the process in managing our resources. I think is where we get the real benefit.
It's about local schools.
Which is part of that. We're sort of having an outreach, I think, for us here in the environment which we're in. I think that would be a very important asset for the club.
There's nothing specific with English golf, for instance, give us as a consequence.
Well, what it would do is if we chose to give us access to, if we wanted to host, it will be the case to host tournaments and so forth. And if that was a choice that the club wanted to do, you would have to be GEO certified in order to access that. So that may be a decision for the course of the club in the future. That I wouldn't say it's a burning issue just in short.
The opening 2040.
Sorry, I feel we have more knowledge on the reporting side of it, but we've just reached the starting point. We've just got to the starting line. So we've submitted the first round of data. When we look at 23 data, 24, 20, 25, we'll then know what we're doing, where we're trending, and those reports will help us to show what we've succeeded in, where we need to highlight, and potentially shape some of the strategic plan going forward.
And one of the other actually direct benefits comes from better sharing ideas, best practice. So by being in the GEO network, we see what everyone else is doing and see what our ideas for improvement and so forth are. So that's pretty good. Let's come to
And you touched on, well, we've done a lot in this club to promote heather over the last 5 or 6 years in terms of taking out gorse and trees. But the established beds seem to have struggled in the last 3 or 4 years. On the 7th, I think, the 10th, and which I think we probably hope to have filled out and developed and filled in the gaps. So there are specific things that we should be doing, or that you should advise to tell us
Yeah, and I'll say this, Jen.
Yeah.
Just to start with, the client's really been 2 years of really excessive summer heat. So 2018 to 2022, 40 degrees, so can't tolerate it on such a viable soil. Yes, you're right. We should expect to see more growth filling the gaps. I think that heathland is at its decaying stage. It's quite becoming at the end of its life. If you were heathland manager, not golf course manager, you would take a mower and rip it right down to its bare bones, so that's naturally repropagate. You can't do that because we want to stay in our jobs. So it's really more of attrition against the mosses, the grass ingress, the weed ingress, it's the tree lines, it's the shade, it's the leaf matter, it's all those things that have not taken a backseat because of the LTSP, but certainly will become more prominent focus once the LTSP is done, because that will become our next, which is part of this, is part of our next phase of what we've got. And whilst James might have some suggestions to bring into the team for people growth, we work with our other monitors, so we can manage just to it's very easy about it. It's simply a case of that they're bad luck, but we should expect that going forward. Chemicals that you don't want to use to wipe out things like heather beetle, that is decimating to heather during high heat because it starts to chew on it simply. But again, approaching those areas with more time and effort and energy will, I think, release more to establishing. In my time here, which is 5 years, have grown the heather, but we've seen some of the areas take a step back. I think because of environmental issues rather than too much other than that. But it's certainly it's forefront of my mind that it's an area that absolutely has to be increased. It's a habitat that's dying out through the UK, and we have this opportunity, much like with Geo, we have this opportunity to demonstrate that we're actually really good curators of this, tiny little habitat, and we should encourage as much.
Should we be taking a partial approach that you talk about, not grubbing it up, but taking a destructive approach to manage it and encourage it? Should we be doing that in sections?
Potentially, yes, but I think that sort of planning comes on the next phase of the that sort of plan. Yes, I do believe that's a potential way forward. You can kick the can for as long as you like when it's in its current phase, and have it repeats to 30, 40 years old. It reaches the degenerate stage where it starts to get very woody and die back. In order to get like young growth through it, you have to then remove the canopies, and that's what we need to spend time doing. There are various approaches we use, even all my time here, try stripping, which is quite hard on the stony soil because all the new heather shoots struggle in high heat. So sometimes it's about getting 2 or 3 years of good growth through good growing weather, through, let's say, wetter summers, and then you have an established crop which doesn't die back so quickly through the more stressful periods.
Just one last thing. So I see failure a lot where heather beds are concerned. The first thing you need to check is your pH. It needs to be acidic, 94, 4.5, something like this. So if you go under neutral or an alkaline environment, you start to grow heather. It goes back to formulating. It starts to grow heather in the wrong environment, same as anything. It's not going to grow, it's just going to die back. So it might be that, do you have irrigation near the beds?
I mean, water can be an issue on heather loss, but not significantly in where we see it. We see big open swathes that have disintegrated simply.
Yeah, we probably around. It's probably just as easy. Yeah. Check pH first.
One last question then.
Really just a comment is that we focused on fostering nature in the session, and like I said, I've been involved with Geo for many years, and I remember there's also about water, also as linking with the communities that you exist in, and all sorts of other things that are part and parcel of the certification we've got to consider as well.
Yeah, it is holistic. Definitely. Okay, thank you everybody. Thanks for engaging and asking such good questions. I'd like you all to join me in thanking James for his being down the trip down. Open, I think. So as they've been so kind to wait until we're finished, I'm certainly going to go and have a drink. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah.